Hey guys, welcome back. Intro to absolute value. So you guys are probably going to think this is a fairly cool lesson. You should have already learned a little bit about absolute value. So in class what I did was a brain where I had you guys write everything you already knew. So here's what they came up with in class. They told me that this was the distance a number is from zero. I had someone yell out at me, always positive, which is absolutely right. And I had someone tell me the symbols were the bars. And finally, number one, someone yelled out, has to do with a number line. All of those things are absolutely true. So our essential question for the day is, what is an absolute value and how do I solve problems when they include an absolute value? So the answer to that is, it is the distance the number is from zero. And how we do it? Well, we simplify what's inside the absolute value and then make it positive. So simplify. So I'm going to give you guys some time to finish writing that down and tell you a little bit about this YouTube video I showed them. So the only thing that I really did with the YouTube video, and if you want to watch it, the link is there for whoever's showing you this if you're watching this with another teacher, or if you are just wondering about it, you can always type that in and find it. It was just a quick little video that told you the distance, and it showed a number line, and it showed how distance can be used. Okay, so let's talk about the basics of absolute value down here. The absolute value of a number is the distance that number is from zero on the number line. Distance can't be negative. If I told you I went negative 60 miles toward Brownsville, you would tell me I was crazy. So since distance can't be negative, absolute value is always positive. And we use the jail bars, as we called them in our class, jail bars, to represent when we are taking the absolute value of a number. Okay? On the next page, we did a little game in class where we played around with a number line. If you would like to play with that game line, number line thing, the app is there. But basically, this explains that. So the absolute value of -4 is 4. Because at -4, you are legit 1, 2, 3, 4 units from 0. The absolute value of 5 is 5 because when you're at 5, you are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units from 0. So distance always either has to be positive or 0 because you could just be at 0. So 0 is your middle brain, your big deal. And it's your starting point so that everything else is from 0. So what my kids said they learned from that is we need to keep a constant scale. What they meant by that is that 0 is always going to be our starting point, and we are always going to be 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5. The scale has to be there for us to count the distance from 0. Another one that people said that I really liked is 0 is the starting point. Whenever you are dealing with absolute value, you will not deal with anything where 0 is not your starting point. Alright, and finally, distance, and I'm going to keep writing it, you're going to get tired of me saying it, but distance is always positive. Alright, so now let's do a couple of examples where we have to use some negatives and play around. So here's example 1. We got m is equal to 5. So for A, we've got a negative, and then I put in parentheses where I want to plug in my m. And then I plug in my negative 5. Whenever you see a negative right next to a number, or to a parentheses, I want you to think of that as a negative 1 being there. So negative 1 times negative 5 is just 5. Alrighty. Now let's do B. I'm going to just write B down here. For B, you've got a negative and a negative, and then remember, I like parentheses for where I'm supposed to plug it in. Now plug in your negative 5. Well, remember, wherever you see a negative, I want you to think it's a 1. So, we start on the inside. Negative 1 times negative 5 is 5. Bring down your negative 1. What's negative 1 times negative 5? Negative 5. In general, if you have an odd number of negatives, it's going to remain negative. If you have a positive number of negatives, it will be positive. Alright, let's look at C. Absolute value bars, you know I like my parentheses, negative 5. Well, what is the absolute value of negative 5? How far away from 0 is negative 5? 5. Okay. We got this. Let's look at D. The absolute value of a negative 5. Well, remember, this is just a 1 right there. So negative 1 times negative 5 inside of our absolute value is what? The positive 5. So what's the absolute value of 5? Just 5. Woot woot. We're getting this. And let's do our last one. So we have a negative, so this is E, a negative absolute value of a negative 5. Okay. Remember, this is just a 1. This is just a 1. So negative 1 times negative 5. Oops, sorry. That way you can see it. Negative 1 times the absolute value of negative 1 times negative 5. Well, we're going to bring down our negative 1. Any number, just like a number next to a parentheses means multiplication, any number next to an absolute value just means to multiply. So this is negative 1 times whatever comes out of that absolute value. Well, this is negative 1 times negative 5. So what is that? A positive 5. Well then, this is negative 1 times, what's the absolute value of 5? 5. So our answer is negative 5. A great question asked in class was, well, I thought you said everything that comes out of an absolute value is positive. What came out of our absolute value is positive. But if there is something on the outside of that absolute value that's being multiplied to it, it could become negative. But this didn't directly come from the absolute value. What came out of our absolute value is, in fact, positive. Alrighty. On the next page, I gave an example for them to try out on their own. So at this point, I'm going to tell you, try it on your own. Pause, try it, and then I'm going to show you the answers, but we're not going to go through it. So there's your answers for those. Alrighty. Another type of thing that we could do is ask you to make a statement using greater than, less than, or equal to. So, well, what do we got going on here? We've got a negative 1 times the absolute value of 3.75. This just means negative 1 times whatever the absolute value of 3.75 is, which is, in fact, 3.75. So then this is a negative 3.75. Now, what is the absolute value of 3.75? Just 3.75. So which one's bigger? Well, this guy, this big boy here, he's definitely bigger. So we have a greater than. Okay, let's take a look. We have the absolute value of 5 is 5. Keep our minus. What's the absolute value of negative 5? 5? What's 5 minus 5? 0 is 0, bigger than or less than 10. Less than. Alligator mouth wants that 10. Alrighty. So what I have going on for you is some to practice on your own here. Woot woot. And then I'm going to show it to you. So when we did this, we pulled out our 5, kept our negative, that's a negative 5. The absolute value of negative 7 is 7. Negative 5 is in fact less than 7. 4 minus, we kept that. Pull out our positive 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. 0 and 0 are the same, so they're equal. Yay! Alrighty. Let's do a little bit more. So this will be a bit shorter video than usual, but hey, you've got some practice to work on, so that won't hurt. So given h of x equals x plus 2, find each value. So I don't know about you guys, but in my class had not really seen what we call function notation. This means any x you plug in should be able to go into here. So if you have h of negative 3, that means that you should be able to plug negative 3 in to that function. So I'm going to say equals, and we'll put our answer there later. Well, if we want h of negative 3, then here's h, where we have some number, I'm going to put it in parentheses blank, plus 2. Well, look, x plus 2, x plus 2. X is where we have it when it's h of x, so if it's h of negative 3, we're just going to plug in our negative 3 wherever our x was. Now all that's left to do is solve. What's negative 3 plus 2? Negative 1. And then the absolute value of negative 1 is 1. Alright, so the same thing goes over here. We've got our absolute value. We've got our plus 2. And we need a little blank space for wherever our x is. Now what we plug in is in parentheses. So we're going to plug in 0. 0 plus 2 is what this becomes, which is the absolute value of 2, which is in fact 2. Alright, let's make it a bit harder. This time we're given g of x as the absolute value of 2x minus 1. Well, okay, that's not going to be that bad, right? We're going to make our absolute value. Here's our 2 times our x minus our 1. What are we plugging in for x? The 1. So 2 times 1 is 2, minus 1 in absolute value. Then 2 minus 1 is 1. And the absolute value of 1 is in fact 1. Alrighty, let's try this more. Absolute value of 2. Here's our blank for our x minus 1. Okay, this tells us to plug in negative 2 everywhere there was an x, so we can do that. So 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 minus 1. Then negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5. In the very end, when we have our absolute value all by itself with only one number in there, is when we make it positive. So our answer is 5. And usually I don't work these out with you, but these were a bit of a struggle for my kids, so I'm going to work out this one too. Plus, I agreed to videos being less than 30 minutes, and we're at 13, so we're going to be fine. Alrighty, so let's do this. Absolute value, negative 2 times something in parentheses plus 3. This blank that I'm leaving is standing for x. We want to plug in negative 6. Negative 2 times negative 6 is in fact 12 plus 3. Keep our absolute values. What is 12 plus 3? That is 15. So the absolute value of 15 is in fact 15. Alright, let's take a look over here. Negative 2. Keep a space for where our x is, plus our 3. So we're going to plug in 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 plus 3. Keep your absolute values all the way through until the very end. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1, which is equal to 1 when we take the absolute value. Yay! We did it! So the last thing that we're going to do in this video is just a quick review to when we jump into doing equations and inequalities with absolute value. So let's take a look at the next page. So my question to you is, what would you say if I asked you what you thought x could be in the following situation? So we have x is equal to 6. Well, x could equal 6 because the absolute value of 6 is 6, right? Or x could equal negative 6 because the absolute value of negative 6 is also 6. Those are the only answers that x could be. So we are always gonna have 2 answers for absolute value equations. All right, take a look here. What about this one? In my class, I had people say, well, we could plug in 7. Well, let's see what happens if we plug in 7. What equals 7? 7 is not equal to negative 7. Well, they're like, we'll try negative 7. It equals 7, not negative 7. So in this case, there is no solution. So sometimes, just like with our normal equations, there's going to be no solution. All right, now let's talk about some inequalities. Alrighty, so if we want all the numbers bigger than 5, well, anything we plug in, 6, 7, 8, 9, onward, it's going to work. So all numbers bigger than 5 is going to work, right? Okay, but also numbers bigger than negative 5 will work, because if I plug in a negative 6, that's going to work. Negative 7, that's going to be 7. Negative 8, that's going to be 8. So all numbers less than negative 5 will also work. So here's our number line. Negative 5 here, 0 in the middle, 5 here. Open dot, open dot. We want all the numbers less than negative 5. It goes that way. All the numbers greater than 5. It goes that way. What type of inequality is that? It's an OR. Guess what? Our compound inequalities are coming back into play. They're not going anywhere. All right, so what you're going to find with absolute value inequalities is that they're going to be either and or. All right, and finally, last but never least, is there any way that our absolute value equation, or inequality here, can be less than negative 3? What are the numbers less than negative 3? Negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, onward to infinity. It's never going to be less than a negative, because remember, always positive. So, in this case, we have a no solution. So just like absolute value inequalities or equations can have no solution, so can our inequalities. Alrighty guys, that's all I really got for you. Good luck on the assignment that you have. If you're in my class, finishing it up and turning it in as homework, hopefully. If you're in someone else's class, whatever assignment they give you, good luck with that. Have a great day, and I will see you next time.